Well, not meant to be. Port Adelaide beat Essendon 11-12-78 to 10-14-74 in possibly the most dramatic, heartbreaking circumstance that you could envisage in a game of football. After the siren, score review, just dangling the little cat toy in front of our faces. Nathan. I'm joined by Nathan. Sorry, welcome back to the Don
Oh,
Pod. Hello. I just monologued there for a bit. How are you, sir?
good. Thanks, Sam. How are you, buddy?
Delightful. Had a couple of days now to process. We're a bit
We
late.
needed it.
We're a bit late on the old pod this week, just family commitments and whatnot. But good. It's good to have a bit of time to consider.
It
Don't
is,
you?
especially after a game like that, where at different stages of that game, I felt like we were the worst team by a long way, and we were the best team by a long way.
It was,
So there's a lot to take
there
out
was
of that.
some polar opposites.
Yeah.
Just before we jump in too much, I want to just get your attention, the listeners out there, to a little link in the description, hopefully, of whatever platform you're listening to this on. It's a little Google form, just a survey just around the future of the pod and what you want to see, and some possibilities.
Basically, if Sam and I should quit our jobs and go full time in this environment,
as nice as that might be, it's not quite the levels of what we're after.
We're figuring if we can make $3 a week, we'll probably survive.
Yeah, I reckon we can do that.
Yeah.
Each, right?
Ooh, I was going to split that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, $1.50.
Yeah.
Do that. Anyway, check out the description. Have your say. Pretty simple stuff. Just let us know what you think.
Yep.
Right.
See how we can improve.
Essendon 10-14-74. I've said this bit already, but anyway. Port Adelaide 11-12-78. I'll reel off some numbers as usual and we'll crack on into it. Plus 38 disposals. We are generally a high disposal side, so that kind of figures. Minus 5 inside 50s, which, although that's down, I reckon that's the closest we've been in the
we
inside
still continue
50
to lose
count
that, though, don't we?
for a long time, but I reckon we were getting beaten by more. Despite some commentary from supporters, that is, we won the free kick count to 21-13. But
I was one of them.
I do want to talk about the umpires later on, though, just the same. I've got some opinions. Hitouts were 40-17 our way, but that only equated to +2 clearances, -2 at the centre bounce, and +4 at the ground stoppages. +5 marks, +4 tackles, although they had +5 tackles inside 50. So when they got the ball in there, they were able to keep it there a little bit longer than what we were. In terms of players, Langford 3 goals, Guelphy, Caldwell 2, Stringer, Martin, Laverde 1. And I'm going to go a bit of a change of pace with this one. I'm not going to reel off disposals because I don't think that's really useful to anyone.
But you're out of the fantasy community.
So we're going to reel off some more in-depth numbers and go sort of into a bit more depth around some of the player performances.
Ooh, this is interesting. This is new. I wasn't told about this. I didn't get the notes.
No, and I should have told you because I would have written down stats of players you wanted to talk about. But I feel like I have them covered just the same.
That's all right.
So
Go.
I've monologued enough here, I think. Is there anyone you want to mention particularly?
I'm interested to hear where this goes.
Well, all right. I forgot to write down one, so forgive me while I just sort my shit out.
Would you like me to Phil?
No, it's fine. I've got it all open here. Just a bit of elevator music. I want to talk about Sam Wiedemann. I know that's a weird place to start, but he did cop a bit of... Just a little bit, and he has been over the last few weeks just copping.
I don't think he kicked a goal since the Richmond game. Is that correct?
It's been a little while. He's got a bit of the yips. But what I want to talk about is his impact around the ground. And before I go into this too much, I like to point out that I was there, you weren't, so we got two different perspectives. And I like having those perspectives.
I agree.
It is different.
Especially when it was pissing down rain.
Oh, yeah.
Got a photo from you sitting right on the fence going, no, I'm pretty happy at the couch. Thanks right now.
We were all kind of sitting there and, being members and all that, you're surrounded by the same kind of people every time you go. We're all kind of
those type of people.
Kind
Same ones that abuse our Australian cricketers.
Turned to old mate Brian behind me and sort of said, it's just like country footy, except it's 38,000 and it's at the MCG. But the rain is just
You're not sitting in your car?
No, honking the horn when they kick a goal. Bring it back. Big weeks.
Imagine if they had a little section at the MCG where you
Just
could park a car.
That'd be great. just parked around their boundary.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
that'd be great. Anyway, digress. Big weeds. So, Mr. Crucial set shot, I believe it was in the fourth quarter. But 9 disposals, 4 hitouts, 5 marks, and a tackle, and 2 clearances. What I want to touch on briefly is just his influence around the ground was there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's worth remembering that really the idea for Weeds was to come in, play second ruck to Draper, and that would allow Wright to be pretty much sole forward. Pete did a bit of rucking. He ended up with 3 hitouts, rucking up forward. But I think, yes, he's a forward. He needs to kick goals, sure. But I think the commentary around his position in the team, in particular, is a bit unfair. He was very good around the ground. It's only the goal kicking now that's a concern.
Do you think it would be better if, not better, but do you think it would be better for him if there was also like a Jones in the team, so that when he did go into the ruck, that we still had those 2 tools, and if it was Sammy Draper, that he would go to the bench? Or do you think that makes us too tall?
I reckon you're bordering on too tall.
Yep.
But if you have an agile one, like Harry might be a bit, this is a stupid thing to say, if he can turn into that, like a Danaher kind of player, where he's a bit more mobile, can bend down, pick up the ball, all that sort of thing, you get away with it. If you've got big lumping forwards.
I guess at the moment too that Langford is, although he's not, he's not tall, but he's playing tall. That role of the other tall, isn't he?
Yeah, he's taller than me, so he's tall. No, don't talk about it. Anyway, I just want to touch on that because I think I'm a big fan.
So,
were
you impressed by, like, you were happy with the way he played?
Look, the goal at the end, of course, it'd be nice if that goes through.
The shot at the end, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, the shot at the end. Thank you. If he kicks that, we probably win. No, not probably win. That's a stupid thing to say. If he kicks that, it's a goal and a point. It would have helped, I'm sure. But then he's not the only one. Parrish kicked 0-4.
No. Yeah.
Kicks
it 4.
Someone else missed an easy shot. I can't remember who it was. I think
there was a few really in that.
Quarter.
I think it was the second quarter when we kicked. I'm going to say like 3 goals, 7 or something like that. Something like that it was.
I can stat check that if you like.
Yeah, and there were a few of that. Like a couple were
2
rushed
goals,
behind.
6.
2 goals, 6. Yep. So some of them were very gettable. Like,
absolutely.
Yep.
Anyway.
And I don't like to blame the last 5 minutes of a game.
You can't. No, you can't. There's like 1,000 moments.
Again, Parrish's miss, it would have been great, but like he'd had 30 touches. Like without his 35 touches or whatever, or 30 touches or whatever, like we probably wouldn't have got close to being within a kick.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But
it's all relative.
There's 100,000 moments in the game of football that can alter what happens next. And the funny thing I thought about coming home was if Caldwell had missed the set shot, that may have, this is to prove the point that there's moments within the game that can affect anything. He might have missed that. They might have kicked it in. We might have kicked another goal and won.
Yeah.
Like it could have actually been better for us for him to miss, theoretically. Bizarre. Yeah. But.
Yep. And I like the chances of, like the goal that was kicked after, like that was a very good kick. Like,
yeah, we need to talk about that.
Wet ball. No, let's rub it in. Let's feel the burn.
I was at the game last year where Elliott kicked the goal, and that was probably more unlikely, just given the
boundary,
the boundary and the distance.
Yeah.
With Elliott's straight off the boot, I went, oh no, and we were behind that. We were behind that.
Yeah, the camera angle for us was directly behind Dan Houston, and as soon as it came off, I went, that's home.
Yep, and I was down the other end of the ground, so that shot was at the city end, we're at the punt road end, and. Again, you could just tell as soon as it came off his boot, he's flushed that. And then just to add to the drama.
You just want to see that get to the right.
Yeah, just
away.
hang it. Just exactly. Side of the boot, out in the full, no worries.
And as you mentioned to me, some fascinating sort of situation where the Bombers in the VFL the next day kicked one after the siren
to win it. And I would love to know if that's ever happened.
Well, it's pretty to think that the senior side loses from a kick after the siren, the VFL side wins with a kick after siren. It's pretty amazing.
Well, it can't happen that often, really, can it?
I don't imagine it would have happened. I think that's a fair
we'll cover the VFL a bit more later on, but against top place Gold Coast, which is a sentence I never thought I'd say, but they are very good.
They're very funny ladder when you look at it. Like,
VFL
to be
side.
honest, like
Hawthorn are quite good too, aren't they? The
yeah,
VFL?
well, and North Melbourne are up there. I'm like, what's going on?
Interesting. Anyway, digress. Back off my boy Sammy Weideman. And there was some groans and grumbles when he did miss that shot, and it's just not helpful. As a supporter, I get it, but you just got to sit there and the crowd did get up, did ride him a little bit. He took a mark in the last quarter, and there was a good weed around the ground. But as soon as he missed that shot, it just the little rumbles, you could just hear it as if his own head wasn't enough.
Well, there was it wasn't a great game for the tall forwards in the end because of the weather. Like, well, I thought Peter Wright had a stinker, to be honest.
Can we cover a few more players? And I want to come back to Wright, if that's okay.
Yep, fair enough.
Parrish, you mentioned 29 touches, 7 tackles, 5 clearances, 0 goals, 4. That could have been a phenomenal game of football.
Yep, even 1 goal, 3.
Well, if he kicks that last one, we do win.
Yeah,
that's the most disappointing.
2 goals, 2. That's a good game of footy.
Yeah, but just work rate, clearances. He gets his body in there and he cracks in and wins the footy. It's just great.
I still think that's a valuable player. We talked about this a bit last year about skill and effort. We need to see effort. Like, you expect effort, don't we?
Minimum expectation.
And he brings effort. Skill, look, you can work on that. Like, to be honest, I'd rather have a guy that butchers the ball No, I don't think he butchers the ball all the time because I saw some passes hit targets.
It's a weird one because I'm forgiving of the quick kicks out of the stoppage. What frustrates me more, and this is any player, not just Parrish, is when you're streaming away from the stoppage and you've got numbers. You can either handball or you've got space to make the kick. Is one, the shank, the wobbly kick, because you're not helping your forwards.
No.
A nice tidy drop punt's easier to mark than an absolute shit wobbler. And 2, the shallow entries. We don't seem to sometimes get the penetration on. That's what bugs me more. If you're taking a quick kick out of a stoppage, well, your kick's going to be 50-50 at best.
And then you watch the way someone like Merritt kicks the ball sometimes when you go, there was one kick, he got the ball in about the defensive 50 and he just kicked it over the top of it.
That was the fourth quarter. There's 2 of our players right there. Yeah.
Whoa, Sam.
Weirdly, I haven't written down Merritt's numbers. That's bizarre from me.
He had a very good game too.
That's a good segue. 31 touches, 4 tackles, 3 clearances, and nearly 600 metres gained for Zachary, captain.
Very interesting looking at his heat map. He was obviously playing I would call a half-back role.
Interesting.
Now, I don't want to be the one that obviously points this out to you, but probably one of the Essendon coaches is listening to this because I think if you went back to last week, you'll recall that I said we need to probably shift a bit more better ball user down to that back half. Now, I might be paraphrasing a little bit there.
A little bit, yeah.
I did suggest Perkins. I didn't probably go as bold as suggesting Merritt. But good on them for listening and taking my advice. Anytime, you can call me up.
Interesting from you. I've always said you're really modest when it comes to this sort of thing. What I want to talk about Merritt is that we've gushed over his game this year, being captain and taking his game to a whole new level, all that sort of stuff. He brings a sense of calm to the crowd, to his players, I'm sure. When he goes near the ball, there's not that little panic in you that just goes, oh shit, just pick it up. The moment I want to touch on and just froth over for a minute was the tackle on Aliir.
Oh, yeah.
In the fourth quarter. Absolute shirt front. Aliir's a much bigger dude. I could forgive Zach for not holding on particularly well.
Yep.
Just front on tackle, holding the ball, and we scored as a result. That was, I think, the first goal in the run of the 3 to get back in front. It's not just the tackle, it's your captain going in, making that tackle. It's inspiring then the rest of the team, and you just see that and go, holy shit.
It's leadership.
This is my guy.
It's leadership. It's doing what needs to be done. And other players like, well, he's done that. I've got to commit myself. I've got to get those tackles to stick.
And not the first time, obviously, Dreamtime chasing down Dusty. There was a lot made of that effort. It wasn't a tackle per se, but of that effort to affect the kick. Just unreal. And that sort of game, that sort of weather against a very good side. Very good side.
Equally the best team in the competition at the moment.
He was, I love the man. Absolutely.
My question for you, Sam, at the game, what do you think was going on in those first 15 minutes?
Could we roll through the players?
Okay.
Is that okay? I've got a few more.
Yep, keep going.
We're jumping around. We're trying really hard to make this structured. Two more.
Yep.
Caldwell. 24 touches, 2 goals, 3 clearances, 3 tackles. But that last 10 minutes, he was everywhere.
I can't remember his stats for the last quarter. I think they were like, no, I did look at it. It doesn't matter.
Okay, good
Might
input.
have the thing. Keep going.
Good input. You can't, every single player can't be everywhere all the time. That's okay. So when you've got your Merritt and your Parrish controlling the game in the midfield, to have Caldwell float at the end and become the impactful player, kick 2 goals, and was involved with a very, very, very clean pick-up on half-forward with Langford's goal in that run.
With a handball from the...
Yep. But picked up that ball so cleanly. It was beautiful. And then if I can segue into Hobbs, who had 23 touches, 4 tackles, 4 clearances. I think it was maybe I can't remember if it was first or third quarter. Maybe the second quarter. I don't know. He got on top. He had a fantastic patch of about 10, 15 minutes where he won the ball. It was second quarter. There was a passage of play where he got the ball, rode a bump, a really hard bump from one of the Port guys, kept the footy, and then handballed kicked and found a target. We've got so much depth in that sort of mid-half forward.
Interesting you say that, because I thought on those two, and probably more so Hobbs, I wasn't sure. I tried to look up the data, but the AFL thing crashed on me a few times. It was very frustrating. When Shield came on, it looked to me, and I looked a bit at the data, and it looked like Hobbs got them pushed to a half-forward role. His heat map showed more possession around that area, and his clearances, CBAs seemed to drop, whereas Shields obviously went up.
Shield came straight on and went straight into the guts.
There was a moment when they were playing really well in that fourth quarter, and when I thought we were gone, there was a period, I think they kicked the first 3 or something like that.
Yep.
And I thought, gee, that hasn't been a good move again. To me, it looked like Shield didn't have the pace of the game. Like, he was running around near the contest, but not getting to the contest. And I think he only had 2 or 3 touches too in that, which I know it's hard to do in a quarter, but he did not influence the game.
When you bring on...
And then to go further, I would say I also don't understand this taking Menzies off all the time, because, again, I thought he was important in just a bit of pressure, a bit of, tackling and all that sort of stuff. But anyway.
Shield had 2 touches and 3 tackles, to be fair. Well, let's chat about that.
I felt like some of the drive of Hobbs had been taken away, and he'd been, I thought, close to best on ground at 3/4 time.
Certainly in the conversation. He was phenomenal, just was really noticeable for 10 minutes. He was just in absolutely everything in the second quarter. We'll chat about the sub, because that's been a topic of conversation. Not that you can really surf Twitter anymore. Thanks.
Yeah, what's going on there? You're young. What's happening?
Elon's pissed off with some sort of data scraping or something or other, so he's limited the number of tweets you can see in a day. So once you get that rate limit exceeded, that's it. You just turn off Twitter.
All right. So all those people trying to have conversations with the English cricket supporters at the moment is not working.
No, it's not working.
Probably a good thing.
But a lot of the stats you just sort of stumble across and go, hey, that's interesting. And then you can dive deeper. That sort of comes from Twitter. So it's disappointing, Elon, if you're listening. Sort it out. Sub. So first question for you then is, number 1, would you have had Dylan Shield as the sub?
No, I don't think he's a very good sub.
Who might you have had instead?
I would have preferred, knowing what the weather was, I would have stuck with a small. That would have been obvious. And I don't mind if it's a Hind or a Massimo, but pace and pace is probably what you want to bring into a game in the third or fourth quarter. That's, pretty fair. Yep. I guess they thought Shield, but the problem with him is that he'd not played footy for, 4 weeks basically. And whereas I would have been picking someone with decent form out of the VFL, and maybe even like even a Davey might have been all right, but probably not. But someone that could come on and influence the game.
I think you're right with Hind, because you get, he's come on as a forward. And he's obviously a defender.
You get a forward or a defender.
So, yeah.
And he gets pace.
And pace.
I would have honestly thought about maybe even taking Phillips off, even though he was really good in that last quarter, a couple of big spikes, and sending Wiedemann into that ruck for the last quarter and say, just ruck your guts out, mate. Run around with Finlayson, who I thought was doing a bit of a job on us, to be honest, at different times.
He was great around the contest.
Because he was playing as an extra midfielder, basically, because Phillips could not go with him. So...
It's
So I find that the last 2 or 3 weeks we've stuffed this whole how to deal with the.
I don't think Menzies was the one to sub.
No.
I'm with you. I don't think Shield maybe made the best sub in general. I wouldn't want to have taken Wiedemann off for the mental aspect of it, but I think he was it. Phillips,
I don't have a problem with that.
Those massive hit outs is an understatement. Smack outs that he belted to half forward. I mean, it wasn't in the end because we lost after the siren, but that was 5 seconds off the clock that could have been.
But also they were important. I thought that he started to. I think what was frustrating is that I don't think he knew how to ruck against Finlayson because he didn't know how to, and he was clearly heaps better than the young kid that had been dragged on out of nowhere, like out of the sheds to come and play game of footy.
Mm-hmm.
And back on that, you're saying how we had 40 hit outs to their 17.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a bit disappointing that we didn't have more of a clearance win. And I think that was because even a few times, it happened at least twice, Phillips hit it straight to Finlayson, who didn't even ruck. He just stood there and go, I'll get the crumb. And
I think that probably affected Phillips, and that's why
what made him start spiking it. And he goes, well, I'll get you out of the contest.
Forward,
yeah. But it would have been great if he started that in the second quarter or third quarter.
I got to say, that had hurt. It was cold. It was raining.
They are men,
30,
Sam.
30. Fucking hell.
Have you ever punched a footy?
Not for, how old am I? 29. Not for 15 years. And I was a big centre half forward, so all I did was take marks. I didn't punch.
Big centre half forward.
Well, I was big for 12.
Anyway, I felt like it showed how important Draper is because Draper can deal with those mobile ones a bit better. Like he doesn't mind hurting them.
Phillips really had a great game. 12 touches, 4 marks, 5 tackles and 5 clearances and 33 hit outs.
Yep. I don't disagree with that. I think his marking was the best I've seen him.
Yeah.
The marks probably on those kick outs from our points, from their points, were really important.
Conversion from hit outs to clearances is an issue we have across the board. We do tend to win hit outs every week, but then sort of break even generally with clearances. So it's an interesting one.
That frustrates me because
I think Wiedemann was probably the right option to sub, but I don't know, it's a fine line between protecting your player and just doing what's right.
Well, then, if Wiedemann kicks that goal,
well, that's right. And
with the wet weather, agree, it's very easy in hindsight to sit here and go, "Oh, they should have subbed someone else." Hindsight. I didn't mean to make that pun, but it worked. But I still don't agree with taking out a small when it's a wet.
No, I agree.
Game. I just think that seems silly to me. Like, feels.
There's Lee Matthews. I've heard talk about this a couple of times. In that
they don't get any smaller.
They don't get any smaller, and in the wet. We only really had the 3 super tall players. Like, you're not going to sub Dirk Thatcher. That's never going to happen.
God, no.
So it was really only going to be Wright who you're not subbing Phillips or Wiedemann. And I don't mind the fact that they stayed on. But whether or not Menzie was the one.
But you could have, you could have taken someone like a Jake Kelly or, and shuffled someone around. Like, it doesn't always have to be a forward. Like, that's the thing, though. Can't it be a backman? Like, at the time, and I can't remember exactly when Shield came on, like, we had to win the game. Like, in that last quarter, we had to kick a lot of goals.
Yeah.
So.
Look, I don't know if there was any much better option, but I don't think Shield was the right sub. If you'd taken Menzie off for Hind, it might be a bit of a different conversation then. It might be more about the fact it was Shield. We don't need another midfielder like that.
I just don't think Shield should be a sub. He needs to play a full game of VFL. To be honest, I would be saying, okay, VFL for a game, have 30 touches.
Hobbs has taken his spot.
Yeah, I agree. Hobbs is a 20. I'm going to say 20, 21.
20, yeah, 22nd year. 20.
20-year-old player who, in the last 5 weeks, has done a bit of a Parish a couple of years ago. Who, once given the opportunity to play midfield, you go, it's hard to see him being pushed out. Like you just. Like, again, we talk about this.
Parish a lot longer, thanks, Truck.
Yeah, Parish took a lot longer to get a go.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
We talk about this development of the team and where we want to go forward. Like, we want to see guys like Hobbs just given the opportunity. And now you have to say to Shield, well, you have to work around that. Like, you might even have to play VFL or you might have to play a different role.
It's not even like play the kids. Hobbs is holding his own.
Play the better football player.
By a mile. Holding his own. And
I reckon you could maybe say to be he's the more informed player.
Well, Well, that's right. And I think
Yeah.
it says a little bit that Shield wasn't just brought back in. I think last year we would have seen him just come straight back in.
Yep.
Absolutely, Merritt, Parrish, those sort of players, they come straight back in. I'm okay with that.
They're pure class.
Shield's not in that category.
Nope.
I think Truck thought he was, when he fake dropped him.
Fake dropped him. That was funny, that moment.
Is it just an opportunity that the coaches went, well, we can put him as sub and then he gets minutes but not a full game? Was it? Did they maybe not expect to be in the game at that point?
Yep. And then the question for later on is with Sardis's form in the VFL. I won't say any more, but then there's another whole conversation we're having in about another 15 minutes of this podcast. Is that has to say I'm ready.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I've got some opinions.
Yep.
You mentioned earlier Peter Wright, and
shocking game.
I was with you initially. Oh, I'm getting free money on WhatsApp from an American number. Cool.
I won't even ask how or why.
I hate WhatsApp.
Move on.
I thought, yeah, he hasn't really had an impact, but what he did do well, whether that was through by design or not, was kept Aliir out of the game. Aliir maybe had 3 intercept possessions. I can remember him taking 3 intercept marks.
Yeah, he only had 11 disposals for the game, so that's that's not a lot.
He had 8 intercept possessions. That's quite a bit higher than I would have thought. But I only remember him taking the 3 marks. So, and I think this sort of tails into the umpire conversation. I think Wright certainly could have had some free kicks. For the Scraggin. But there's
one very clear one where you saw like Wright's jump, like he got front on contact, and then he got his jumper pulled by the other player, and you're like, well, you could have picked 2 there.
Yeah, and I know big forwards, goals, all that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, if he's kept a guy like Aliir, who normally does tear us a new one, Aliir, Darcy Moore, that kind of player,
but
we're still competitive.
That's fine, but he still needs to kick a goal. Like he can't.
I agree.
Like 6 possessions, no goals, no shots. I don't think he even had a shot, did he?
I think he had one that dropped short from like 50.
Distance or yeah. So I mean, it's a bad game, dirty game, but the second game back, second game, third back,
third Carlton,
third
Freo.
Yep. So I don't think it's bad, but I would be a little bit. I've got to play better next week.
Yeah, I think what it did for the team with Aliir was beneficial at least. The umpires, a lot of rabid Essendon supporters, members around me. I try to, when I'm sitting there watching it, I try to look for the reason why the umpire didn't pay it. I find it helps my sanity. Or if it's a free kick against us, why he did pay it. So the one, I think it was Rosie running, he ran like from behind centre all the way into the 50 and then got absolutely coat-hanged by McGrath. And there were people sitting there going, "Oh, he ducked you." No, he didn't. McGrath just clubbed him around the face. Like that's
a fine. I don't have a problem with that. That's a free kick.
What frustrates me more is the ones that we don't get paid. Yeah. So I remember Narkle getting caught cold at least twice. Boat got caught cold once. Several times they got spun around 4 times and handball. And
the ball fell out and the umpire said play on.
But even when they handball it, they've had 3 hours to get rid of it. And
I think it's more about how they get rid of it at that stage for me. Like if they're not getting rid of it, correct disposal, then that's holding the ball. If the umpire's thinking, that tackle hasn't lasted longer than you handball away, then that goes back to your theory of like, I can see what he's saying there. I don't agree.
Yeah.
I can see what he's saying.
I can accept
it's when I see the ball not being a handball, that's holding the ball, man. You've had the ball, you tackled, you didn't dispose of it correctly.
Yeah.
Ball.
Darcy Parish gave away one too that was hotly debated, and I was just kind of like, well, no, he's taking his eyes off the ball and absolutely clattered into the port guy. You can't do that. So I'm kind of defending the umpires.
With how many free kicks Laverde didn't give out. I was worried in that first quarter. I want to talk. Can we now quickly talk about the first 15 minutes?
Yeah. Okay. So I've got it written down here, right?
Yep.
Port really
didn't send this to me.
Port really didn't convert their quarter 1 dominance.
Yep.
And we didn't convert our quarter 3 dominance.
But the quarter 1 dominance was very concerning.
Yes.
Because I was watching that going, geez, we have not started. They look like they are just everywhere. And I was watching big fella, what's his name? Their forward,
Dixon.
Hayward
We need to talk about Dixon actually as well.
Dixon.
What it was for me, you sort of asked the question before, what happened?
Yep.
Two main factors. One, we were not clean. If the ball's on the ground, we fumbled. They did not.
Yep.
And there is nothing more stark and obvious at a game of football than when your opposition's clean and you're not. It's awful.
Mm-hmm.
And two, they're set up around the stoppages or the contested ball. They always have one or two on the outside ready for that handball, and they got it every time.
Yep.
So it turned from a scrap into their free ball. Scrap, they got the ball. And it just happened
and it took us a while to work that out.
Over again. But we did, and that's the key thing I think to mention, is we did work it out. Second and third quarter, they didn't get it. When they were on top early in the fourth, they kind of got it back a little bit.
Yep.
Not so much us being sloppy, but they just got that structure back. And then again, though, we fixed it on the run.
Yeah. And I think there's some real positives. Like what I wanted to just quickly say was that, so that 15 minutes, they dominated, like 7 scoring shots, whatever it was. They would have had a lot more possessions, a lot of the, clearances, everything was going their way. And I thought, geez, this is bad. But to our credit, for the next 2.5 quarters, we turned the game on its head. And at certain stages, as you were saying, in that third quarter, we looked the better team by a bit.
Third quarter, pretty much.
That is a surprise. That's the big takeaway. The result, disappointing. And then in the fourth quarter, they did it to us again.
And we fixed it on the run, which...
We fixed it again. That is very unlike us.
The third quarter...
I think you'd agree?
Yeah, I do. We need to stop saying that because we do a bit of the whole, or last year we wouldn't have done this. Let's just focus on the now.
But that's last year. I mean, that's still pretty fresh in our memories. Yeah, it's not like we're talking about 10 years ago.
In the third quarter, I think it was unfortunate in a way that that's when it rained. And it looked horrendous on TV, I'm pretty sure. It was a very, very heavy mist.
Oh, really?
So it wasn't... And I know this
wasn't much heavy rain.
It wasn't rain. It was very, very heavy mist, which is why it looked so phenomenal against the lights.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Definitely wet. Like, I got soaking wet sitting there. But it would have been worse if it was heavy rain, trust me. So we kicked, I think, 3-1 in the third quarter. And it was possibly just unlucky. You can't help the weather, of course, but
no,
possibly unlucky that we just couldn't convert a bit more. So that's impressive. To take on second on the ladder, who have won 11 in a row, I think it was 11, and be better than them for pretty much an entire quarter.
Mm-hmm.
It was great. And I walked out of that ground going, Jesus, that was as a whole, I know there were moments we fucked up and we weren't good for the first quarter, whatever. As a whole, it was a bloody good game of football against bloody good opposition. And apart from the first 15 minutes, they did not give up. They just kept going and going and going, tackle and chasing. The effort was as good as I've seen in a long time.
That's what I wanted to say too, was the effort of the 22 or 3 was about as good as we can expect. Like skill, we can work on that. We need to work on that. We need to work on that for a while. But if we continue to turn up to games like that with that effort for 4 quarters, and it was, there were 10 minutes here, 10 minutes here, but it was a 4-quarter game, really.
Well, yeah.
Then we will shake a lot of teams. And, like the next 3 weeks, we've got a team above us by 1, team below us by 1, and then a team above us by 2.
Yeah.
So, really interesting next 3 games.
Next week, I mean, we'll cover next week later, but next week's going to be tough, I think.
But, that's what I'm saying, though. Next 3 weeks, if we put that effort in, I would argue, I still think Geelong are a bogey team, but, like great opportunities to find out what we're like.
We've talked about a little bit that we think we're at capacity. With the players we've got, with what we're dealing with, I don't think we could be asking for a whole lot more. Again, yes, there's moments. Parrish kicks 2 goals too, all that sort of thing. But
in that game, you think, well, like with the way Caldwell played, the way Hobbs played, the way we know Merritt can play, Parrish is back, if we can get Draper back into that team, then all of a sudden, if those guys keep playing the way they're playing, maybe there is a little bit still more improvement in there this year.
And there's still Sardis to come in at some point.
Sardis, we talk about him. Beautiful number 5.
I wrote this bit on the train because I start to write sort of stuff down when it's fresh. Otherwise, I'm
Because you want to look impressive to the girls. Oh, look at him writing stuff.
Honestly, the train home was appalling. So definitely not the case.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
This is the most sure I've been that we're a decent side.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about, me and you, that it's not always the result. When you're playing second on the ladder, you've got to just take it a little bit in context. And
yep,
we should have won. When you go a goal up, or when you go in front with a minute and 28 seconds left, whatever it was, yeah, you should probably win.
Well, the kick after the siren just sucks.
It does. But that was a brilliant moment for them and a brilliant kick from Houston. Dramatic, but whatever. It's why I go to footy, really.
It's very different to say the Brisbane and Geelong games where you get flogged.
We're just out of it. Yeah. I mean, Brisbane, we were in at half time. But that Geelong game was shocking.
Yep. And there'll be, even against Richmond where it turned our way and we got the kick late to win one.
And that's right. And that was the last game I went to. So, thanks, Essendon.
You should go to more.
Yeah.
So, you're right. It hurts, but there's got to be a little blue. Is it blue lining? No, silver lining.
Silver lining. You've got to, as an Essendon supporter, you've got to have your heart just a little bit happy today.
Yep.
And Sunday, just going.
I mean, it could be worse. You could be in English supporter.
We'll get there. We'll get there. I know you want to talk about it. Cricket fans, wait till the end. We'll have a chat about the Ashes.
Anyone else you want to mention?
Not at this point. I was going to jump into the socials, if that's okay with you, sir. Socials.
Yeah.
So I put a post up on Sunday when I thought we were going to do the podcast, but anyway, that's all right.
Oops.
That's fine. Shit happens. That's fine. Jasmine Lee. Zach Merritt is our best ever captain. Big call.
Whoa.
Certain Jay Hurd would have something to say about that.
I'm going to assume Jasmine is in their early 20s.
I can only see a very small photo and I'm not going stalking. So
yeah, fair enough. He's certainly become a player I did not expect to happen so quickly. I thought maybe in a few years he might be, but the 12-month or 6-month evolution of him has been phenomenal.
Yep. Scott Robertson have to stop losing these types of games. Dump kick like Martins have to be low and hard in those conditions, not floated, inviting trouble. Yeah. Falling for that, we force one more stoppage and we win. Just have to get better.
Could have just handballed it for another 30 seconds.
Yeah, but
that's hindsight. It's a beautiful thing.
You kicked it low and hard. Someone might have marked it closer.
Again, can't blame skill. Like effort was there.
They would train very hard for those situations, and I think for the most part we handled it well. I did not expect any player after a full game of football to be able to kick 55 metres.
In the wet.
That should have been a fairly safe option, really.
Yep.
It was just a moment of brilliance.
And seriously, if it had been a metre shorter, like it doesn't make the line. With
not even a metre. It was.
Yeah.
Oh, how good was the goal umpire?
The goal umpire was
that man
excellent. And call it straight away. Go boom, it's goal.
And he was not in a good place.
No, he was everyone over him. But no, but that's different to a 25-metre out on a bit of an angle.
Correct. And if Mardo
you can kick it from there, mate, you can win the game.
If Mardo had
Elliot last year, you can kick it, you can win it.
And then in Anzac Day, he missed one from the exact same spot, didn't even score.
Yep.
Prick. If Mardo had got the ball and tried to take off, cross the goal, kick 50 metres and missed it by 20 metres, issues.
Or if he'd just been tackled and holding the ball and had a shot from 25 metres out, I can understand the frustration, but we can't focus on it
And we beat Richmond in a very similar circumstance. So
it's the things you should be thinking about. Like say Wiedemann kicks his, Parrish kicks one of his. A couple of goals in that third quarter. We could have probably, who knows?
Pretty basic skill errors, and that wasn't.
It's not that one moment. Yeah. There's 4 or 5, and it's skill errors. It's usually our biggest problem. Still is skill errors.
We are our own worst enemy.
We're working on it
for sure. Michael Gigg has a bit of a long comment, so I might paraphrase here a little bit, Michael. So glad we didn't roll over and get pumped when they kicked 3 or 4 in a row.
Yeah, same.
We dug our
I think that's a maturity.
Absolutely. Dug our heels in and claw back in front. Heartbreaking to lose after the siren, but fair play to Houston. Absolute belter of a kick. Yep.
Yeah.
No issues there. Like to see more intent going forward. Eyes down, leading out. We're bombing and hack. Bombing hack kicks in.
I'd love to see some leading forwards from us. Is that a crime?
It's hard in today's game, unless you'd
I
get the
know, but it's
turnover.
still just a couple that I've seen other teams do it, Sam. I've watched other football
Yeah,
and
no,
other
but
forwards
it's
lead at the
usually
ball.
off turnover, and that's where you have the space.
No, even when they're just like when there's somebody player with 70 out, they will still make a lead and they'll just, I can hit that target. We'll have a go at it.
Plenty of upside from a loss. Merritt is an absolute unit. That
Yeah.
tackle on Aaliyah was elite.
Leaked. He's been my
Nice.
super coach captain, actually. He had like 150 or 160. I was pretty happy.
Spicy.
140 maybe.
Michael Nan, super proud of the effort and fight. The old us would have been beaten by 80. Again, I don't like the references to the old us, but we did lose to Port Adelaide by 80 odd last year, so fair enough.
The old us is only last year, Sam. I think that's a fair statement.
I know. Last week, really.
Maybe in 2 years' time, we'll say the old us, we would have lost that by a kick on the siren.
To Dan Houston, prick. Sorry. Phil, our mate Phil.
Oh, super Phil.
Phil, good content as always. It's quite a long comment, so again, apologies, Phil. I'm going to have to paraphrase a little bit.
Come on, Sam. Show the commitment.
All right, I'll read it verbatim. How boring. Okay. Umpire, single. We're shit. Parish can't kick. Weeds needs to go back to the VFL. Blah 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 blah. Excuses. It won't change a damn thing. The result's been registered, and we fell short. That was satire. Took me a couple of times reading it to realise he was taking the mickey out of the people saying it.
Oh right.
Yep. I got there, Phil. Aside from that, we had 20 to 25 minutes of football where we just didn't perform like the rest.
Yeah.
And the other 95 to 100 were great.
Yep.
Started slow in the fourth quarter. These periods of the game ultimately cost us.
Yep.
They kicked 6-4 to just one behind by us. Not sure. Managed to get back on top. Sorry, I'm just getting through.
Yeah, stop.
He gave votes. He gave votes if I can just read out the votes.
Yep.
3 to Parrish, 2 to Caldwell, 1 to Phillips.
Yeah, solid.
From Phil.
I did have a look on that evil website where they blitz the bomber thing.
It's not an evil website. I'm sure plenty of our listeners are on Bomber Blitz.
I'm sure it is, but God, it's negative. Like,
yeah, I don't
like
use
it. Parish is shit, and everyone's shit, and we go, Jesus. I seriously, I went there for about a minute and went, no, I can't read this. Like, it's just so angry and so. Like, it just seems
very reactive, and I think that's where we have to be careful with what we say.
I can understand why Parish would want to leave the bloody club, to be honest, and go to Geelong.
Well, I'm sure he's not sitting there on Bomber Blitz late at night.
Hope to God he's not.
He's not Nate off Ted Lasso sitting there looking at all his socials all night, I'm sure.
Yeah.
His last name?
Oh, look at you with the Ted Lasso reference. I get it now.
Yeah,
it's not finally caught up with the damn series.
Can't remember. Nate Shelley. That's right.
Yep.
Manager of West Ham. A bit of love for Phillips, saying it was a great game from him. A few comments around the fact that Houston went off the line. I promise you he didn't. It was a fair kick. Just need to move on from
even the paused vision of it.
I saw that.
He's like that far.
He's right on it. It is not an issue.
That's
whatsoever.
not the problem again.
The one comment I did say, I don't remember who was on the mark.
I think,
but people saying that we should have had a ruckman on the mark.
We only had one.
Well, that's the problem. And then if the kick had traveled, if it done the exact same thing would happen, and we had the ruckman on the mark, not on the line, we'd be sitting there going, geez, the ruckman should have been on the line, shouldn't he, really? The ruckman was in the right spot.
So I think they're thinking of Collingwood, where they put Cox on the mark.
Yes.
Because he's very good at that.
Yeah.
And then they send someone, like, they've got more down on the goal square.
Yeah, I think you
could see that there was 3 or 4 Essendon players, like, giving their all to try and make that a point.
Yeah, like I said before, that poor goal umpire got freaking owned.
Yep.
He got sat on at some point. Anyway, not to be super proud of the effort to drag us back into it and give 38,000 people. It sounded like 70.
Pretty crappy crowd.
There were some mitigating factors there, because I was the same. I was like, we want to move away from Marvel. We get a game at the G and we get 38,000 people. Like, come on. There were 2 major train lines down, which didn't help from the northern suburbs. Weather puts people off. That's only fair. And there was something else as well to do with transport, roads closed or something. So fair enough. But I do hope we keep getting games like that at the G, because it's so much better.
Yeah.
So much better. Right, shall we jump into votes? We need to do our votes.
Okay, yes, let's do our votes. I wrote them down.
I'm not so sure about mine anymore, but anyway. I go 3 to Caldwell.
What's wrong with that?
Just drag. No, I'm not, that bit's okay. Two to Phillips. I do have a bit of this mentality where I get sucked in by players who have been criticised. So when they have a good game, I really enjoy them having a good game. And Hobbs.
I thought he had a decent game, but it's not anything I personally would. I thought it was his better game in a fair few weeks, but he was up against nobody.
Yeah, I know, and this is
up
why
against a kid who's never played AFL before and Finlayson.
This is why we both do votes.
Yep,
2 to Phillips, 1 to Hobbs for me.
Yep, Hobbs was great.
And you should be grateful I'm giving a vote to a ruckman.
Don't do it because of me.
You and your ruckmans.
So I went with 3 for Caldwell too. I thought he had a super game.
Yep.
2 for Parrish.
Yep.
And 1 for Hobbs.
Yep, perfectly reasonable. Could have chucked Merritt in there.
If Hobbs kicks, if Parrish kicks 1 goal 3 or 2 goals 2.
Oh, it's a 3-vote game.
Now I had a quick look at a player who I think we'll all agree is a very, very good player in Christian Petrarca.
Oh, yeah, big old track. Yep.
Now he had I think. Oh, hang on. Oh, I've lost his numbers. But he kicked like 1 goal 3 or something for his last game.
Are you talking about yesterday?
Yes.
Christian Petrarca kicked 0 goals 4.
Oh,
exactly
there you go.
The same as Merritt.
Now I don't think Melbourne supporters be going around. We should get rid of Petrarca. He's shit. He can't kick. So sometimes you need to look at other clubs and see these guys that you think are superstars and go, well, what do they actually do? They miss goals too.
To just be the devil's advocate, Petrarca's won a flag.
Yeah.
And possibly a Norm Smith. Who won the Norm Smith?
I'm not saying he's not better, but I'm just saying that he's a guy who I think when you think of silky skills, don't you?
Yeah, he's very good at football. And the other thing you have to factor in here is that we as supporters, and I put both of us in that category,
we
are nuffies.
Mm.
And we have starved of success. We have been through the absolute ringer. So quite a few of us are a bit negative and a bit jaded, and that's okay.
Fair enough. I just wanted to point it out.
One last thing before I move on to the VFL. I just want to mention that there's a new logo floating around the ground before games and during the game. If anyone's interested, the same plane but all red. Just want to put that out there because no one cares. It's a whole different logo. No one's even mentioned it. No one's looked at it. No one's thought about it. So,
well, you sent me a picture and I thought, well, that looks better already.
Yeah,
it's red and black.
Still flying down, but it's red. It looks much.
We can work on that.
Right,
we'll win a premiership and then we have to fly down.
We can't go any higher. Yeah.
It's like our stupid
2016. We should have flipped.
Our Collingwood supporter at work who goes, oh, no one can. Oh, we haven't beaten anyone above us.
Okay. I use that term endearingly. VFL, Wuffle.
How about us? We beat the top team.
Essendon, not Essendon, how dare I?
11-11-77
to Gold Coast 12-4-76. Now, Gold Coast, for reference, have played 13-1-11 with 170%. And I'm fairly certain they lost to Richmond after the siren last week.
Really? Yeah, they did actually. They
flogged Hawthorn last week. It was the week before.
Yeah, Yep, Richmond. And it was the guy who kicked that had already kicked an after the siren goal that year already from Richmond.
Richmond beat someone after the siren. Anyway,
yeah,
this is why you do your research before you press the record button.
That's right. Let's move on.
Is what it is. We were winless in 10 or winless in 9 straight losses, and then beat top. I can't think of a more.
Let's just talk about Sardis
thing to do. Voss kicked 2.
Sardis.
Mankura kicked 2. Cox 1-1, and apparently had some very good moments late on.
Yep, I saw a bit of it. Yep.
Hind, 23 touches. Waller with the critical point.
Yeah, 18 disposals too.
Yeah, and a young man.
Alwyn Davey Jr. had 23.
Yes,
did you want to mention that?
Yes. Oh, I thought you wanted me to talk about Sardis.
Well, I'd given up. But anyway, Sardis.
Elijah Sardis. 33 disposals. 21.
35.
Okay, again, on the app I'm on, it says 23. It says 33 disposals. All right,
No, it got updated today. I read about it.
Okay. 8 tackles, 21 of them kicks, probably 23, who knows. 125 dream team. And he's gone from sort of politely knocking on the door to the fist. He's banging just a little bit. I don't know who comes out. I don't want to have that conversation.
Snelling.
Get him in.
Snelling comes out.
Just for our own little hearts, we need to see that in the AFL.
Snelling comes out. Snelling played. I had a look at this. I had a bit of a think. So Snelling
Not
played a
like
sort of
you.
a half wing role. I
Mm.
don't know why, to be honest, but it's just I don't know. But Snelling played a half sort of. He had a bit of time on the wing
Mm.
and a bit of half time half forward. So I'm like, well, he's the perfect replacement because you can get a guy that can kick a bit better, can run, and he's got a
I
bit
must
more.
say, I did like having Snelling in the wet in that sort of game.
Yes, I agree.
But yeah, I agreed that he's sort
But
of
as you say, you've got to take someone out.
the fringe-ish one.
Mm.
And
Oh,
if you
look,
can
I don't want
have
this to be. This is not a knock on Snelling
no, no,
either.
no,
This
no,
is not.
it's pressure
But
on
this is how
spots.
their team
This is
has to get
good.
better. We
This
can't
is
just go.
good.
Oh, but Snelling's a good bloke.
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly. You got to make tough decisions.
Yep.
Guys have missed grand finals on these decisions.
Exactly.
If you can have 30 plus touches and he's had managed 8 tackles,
You're doing something right.
you're in against the best team in the VFL, the best team in your competition. That's your output.
Yep. If you've been the best player against the best team, then you're about. Yeah, I'm ready for AFL.
I want him in. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no. I was just going to say, and with the run we've got coming up against 3 very good teams, great opportunity for
Great
him.
opportunity. I want him to come in as soon as possible. Obviously, if I can romanticize just a little bit about him coming in against North Melbourne.
No, it's too far away.
I know, but just the whole who's their players they got,
Hazel
Wardlaw and Sheasel,
the Warlord.
One I forgot. You know, there's a bit of
Yeah,
nice
but
thing there.
I understand what you're saying. But I would prefer it if he got a few games under his belt before
I
he hit them,
understand.
so then he's got some form.
I understand what you're saying, but I still think you're full of shit. Is essentially what you just told me.
Mm.
Anyway,
I hope if he does get picked, I hope it's not his sub. Like I don't want him to. I don't think that's fair. A kid to come in and play a sub role. I'd be more than happy if he played 3/4 and then they subbed him off.
I think,
and then you could bring Shield in. See, that would work for me. I'd be okay in that world.
Give him another week in the twos just to establish. I'm okay with that. But yeah, he's close. I would hope.
Oh, I would imagine very close. Yes, but I don't mind that either. Another week in the twos. So would that lead us to a conversation of ins and outs for next week? Who would you like to see?
Are you saying there's a segue?
I am saying that's a segue.
It actually appears as though we have the bye in the VFL next week.
No, I meant the AFL.
Yeah, I know that, but I'm saying Sartis won't be playing VFL next week.
Oh, so then he plays. So surely then he just plays AFL. Come on.
Holy Brad, if you're listening.
Didn't they just have a bye like 4 weeks ago?
I don't know. It's weird.
There's 23 teams in that competition. Why do they have byes?
Well, because there's 23, I suppose.
But that would only require the one bye because there's I don't know. There's how many weeks?
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. Anyway, whatever. They had a bye when we had a bye. So yeah, you're right. But
stupid.
There's nothing.
And why is it called the VFL too? That's stupid too. That really annoys me.
Because the NECFL doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Well, why can't it just be called the AFLR?
Reserves. Because it's not the AFL reserves, because there's the Sandful and the Waffle.
Well, why can't they just come up with a whole new name? The Eastern Seaboard FL.
Yeah, the Eastern Football League. There you go.
Yeah.
Solved it. I'm coming for you.
It's just shit calling it the VFL.
Oh, it is. I don't disagree, but whatever. You're getting worked up for not much.
I'm getting worked up. I'm sorry.
Next week we play Adelaide at Marvel on Sunday afternoon, 3:20 shit time slot. But hey ho, at least it's not 4:40.
Good time for a beer.
Yes. No forced changes, I don't believe. And
Draper won't be back.
No Draper. So my little head, well, big head, tiny brain, says I'll jump on your bandwagon, out Snelling in Sartis.
I would also take Shield out and maybe bring Hind in as that. So I'd have Snelling and Shield out and Sartis and Hind in.
I'm okay with that world, particularly against Adelaide, who seem to strike me as a very fast team.
They seem to and like when I think of their small like they're so they've got the big Texan, the
big boy
racist, and
leading the Coleman.
Yeah, somehow. And Fogarty, who we wanted a few years ago. You and I were like, oh, he's a good player. But I would say that just off the top of their, I feel like they're only too tall. Oh, they've got that other funny last name kid. What's his name? Oh, he was like a number 3 pick a few years ago. He's a ruckman forward.
Oh, I know exactly who you mean.
He's from Adelaide. Anyway, so they're their talls, but it's their smalls like Rochelle, the guy that came from Gold Coast, Franken, who kicked 5, I think. Thornthorpe, that's it. Yeah, 3. He kicked, I think Rankin kicked 5 on the
Yeah,
weekend.
Rankin kick 5, career high.
Yeah, so
I think it's
Rochelle
going
is
to
a quality
be
player.
a bit of the same old, in that I think we've got the players to cover that, but it's going to be Tex. That
Oh, but
strong, powerful
Laverde can just go to
forward.
him and he has to deal with that.
They've had a good game, just quietly.
Yeah, he did have a good game, actually.
Worth mentioning. A couple of weeks ago, I would have had this as one we probably should win. Adelaide have been super impressive against Collingwood at the G, and then have sort of done a number on North Melbourne. But
Really in the second half there. What about Kelly? I thought he was a bit not much.
I still think we're too slow with Heppel, Kelly, and Lav. But I'm okay with what you suggested with Shield for Hind.
Well, I would, if you wanted to, I'd push maybe if Shield comes into the same fully and then Kelly comes out for Hind. Oh, no, that wouldn't work. But
let's not get too much into it.
Yeah.
Do you think...
I think there's a few changes. I was a bit disappointed, to be honest, on the non-changes for this game after how ordinary we were against Freo, that I felt like everyone got a pass mark. I'm like, oh, no one got punished? Meh. I mean, it was fine. We played... Hey?
Only Brian.
Yeah, it was Brian,
weirdly.
the kid. Yeah. Anyway.
First game for a long time, we haven't had a late change.
Yeah.
Brian in.
And I see the VFL women's had a good win too.
Yes, and they're in finals.
Yeah.
Good job bringing that up.
Good for us.
Flying the flag. Yeah. Reigning premiers in the VFLW.
Yep.
Can I have a tip for the Crom, please? 2 Adelaide teams in 2 weeks. Interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I think we can do them. I think that they're probably that will match up really well with them in the midfield. They've got some pretty good lead and Sloan and Keys and a few guys like that rolling through there who are pretty good players. They'll probably try and tag either Merritt or Parrish. They'll send Keys, I reckon, to one of those ones. Probably Parrish, you'd think. But I think that now with Hobbs and Caldwell doing what they do, that if we're smart, we'll probably send Dawson's the other one for them who's been playing pretty good footy.
Very good. Brownlow.
Yeah. They might send someone like Caldwell just to run around with Lairdy and just give him a little cuddle every so often.
Perko.
Hey?
Perkins. He played direct on Cripps.
Yeah, Perkins played well actually on the weekend too. I thought he was pretty good. Did a couple of great Perkinators where he just stepped around someone making them look like fools.
Say, for the first time, I really struggled to pick Perkins apart from Caldwell. And I'm not sure if that's just me, but every time Caldwell went near the ball, I thought it was Perkins. Every time Perkins went near the ball, I thought it was Caldwell.
People thought they both had really good games then.
Yeah, it was great.
30 touches each.
Anyway,
I'll go us by 3 goals.
I'll say us by 2. I probably can't handle another close game, but I'm wary that they're quick and Marvel. And I don't really
Marvel,
like
I think, should suit us, though.
Marvel.
We don't mind a quick game, though. Like, we don't mind moving the ball quickly.
As long as we get a Hind or someone like that in, yeah, sure.
And I think Peter Wright will be better at a ground like that, too.
Yeah, well, without the heavy mist, it'd be great.
Yep.
Right.
Just on that, Sam, footy tipping, do you know how to do it?
Did you realise the last 2 weeks I've just gone the opposite?
And you still can't what happens. Zero.
To see what happens. I'm tanking. False sense of security for everyone else. I'll get number 1 draft pick, and I'll be all right next year.
Yeah, sure. I'll remember that.
Or I'll get relegated into Division 2. Who cares? We should have a promotion relegation, yeah. Speaks volumes when the person that knows nothing about football's winning.
I've had a chat to her, and I reckon it's a little bit of her old man's influence.
I think so too. She's forgotten to tip the last 2 Thursday night games and tells me how good she is because she hasn't tipped and still has a 2-tip lead, whatever it is.
I'm coming for her. Like I'm only, I think, 3 or 4 behind now.
Yeah, you've gone up. Anyway, no one cares about our tipping comp.
Sorry.
What people do care about is the cricket.
Oh,
the Ashes.
Can we quickly talk cricket?
We can absolutely talk cricket because I haven't talked to you about it yet. Aussies 2-0 up, as we would all know by now. Some interesting things. So I want to get your takes on 2 things in particular. And if you've been watching anyone, you'll know exactly what I'm about to talk about.
Yep.
The Stark non-catch, first of all.
Yep.
How do you feel?
I did not know that. I would have thought that was a mark, and that I understand that when they explained it. Oh, sorry, catch. When they explained it to me with the grounding of the ball, I was like, "Oh, I guess so. The ball has
Can
hit the
I
ground." But then
give
they talk
you
about, but he's got to be in control. And I go, well, he looks like he's in control. I
can I give
guess.
you an explanation that really turned it for me?
Yep.
So I was fuming.
Yeah.
I was like, that is the cleanest catch you'll ever see. It
Yep.
was a lovely catch on the move.
Beautiful
all
catch. And then he just puts his hands out so he doesn't face plant.
But the explanation that I saw that really went, okay, fair enough, was if he'd taken the catch and hit his elbow on the ground and then it had jarred out, it's not a catch. So the fact he controlled it initially doesn't really matter for too much. If he had put his hand face up and the back of his hand on the ground and skidded that way, the ball might have bobbled out, not a catch. By putting the ball on the grass, he took out that risk.
Yep.
And the ball was on the ground.
That's fair enough. I didn't have a problem when I watched it. I thought, oh, that's a catch. When they said no, and they described it, oh, well, that's fair enough. That sucks, but yeah, that's fair enough. That's cricket. That was
cricket. That is cricket.
That is cricket. Sorry. Then with the next one, you're going to ask me about Bairstow.
I'll introduce it. So Johnny Bairstow, if you're listening, what are you doing?
You should be asleep, Johnny.
What are you doing? Yeah. We'll talk about what's going on.
You and I played cricket.
Yeah, we have.
You don't wander around.
What's fascinating to me, obviously, we're talking the Bairstow walking out of the crease and being stumped.
Yep.
Carey was all in one motion. He took the ball and threw it. There was no pause. There was no, should I, shouldn't I? He just took the ball and threw it back at his stumps.
And he'd been watching it for the three balls before.
When he released the ball, Bairstow was in his crease.
Correct.
If Bairstow had any awareness whatsoever, he's not leaving that crease. And all these little tears, they're crying and they're not going to have a beer with us and it's not in the spirit of the get fucked. Bairstow's tried it before.
Bairstow tried it in the first innings
in the exact same game. Baz McCullum did it
guess
twice.
What? Bairstow's too shit to throw the ball properly and missed the stumps.
McCullum's done it twice in his career.
Yeah.
Like, fuck off, England. And you said it, I don't know if you said it on air, what am I on about, on the pod or just to me, but I've never hated the Poms more in terms of cricket.
Yeah. I hope we smash them in the next one and then don't give a toss bag about the last two.
The only one I'm enjoying a little bit is Broad, which I never thought I'd say. Him just being a dickhead when he came out to bat.
Yeah. Losing the plot over the decision and
then
having to go at Carey saying, you'll be remembered for that. Now, I don't know if you remember.
Mr. Edge to first slip, didn't walk.
Edge to first slip and just stood there and went, that's not out. And I went, yes, it is.
It was very out.
So I love that the English are taking, and this is what pisses me off. So the English wrote the game, they created the game.
The laws, yep,
wrote the laws. And that was pretty much all written in that room. That's the home of cricket where it was played.
Mm-hmm.
And then they talk about the sort of the feel. What's the reference? Not feel of cricket. The spirit of
the game.
Spirit of the game. Now, I think the spirit of the game is what works for them. Is what works for the rich, entitled, white dudes of England. Is what always has worked for them. Now that the cricket is not theirs anymore. India control it, and Australia's dominated them for 20 years. Realistically, they don't like it.
So, did you see some MCC members, as in
yes,
Marleybone or whatever it's called, not our MCC, got banned?
Yep. 3 of them.
And I'm led to believe this is 100% true. These are their names. Bartholomew Frinton Smythe, or Smith, I don't know how you say that when it's Y and A. Lord Humphrey Wigbert Porter.
I don't think these are true, Sam.
And Quentin Breckenbridge.
I don't think
it sounds like a Family Guy skit, but if that's true, that's just the most phenomenal thing I've ever seen.
But anyway, I think it's really piss poor that, and a lot of the English commentators who are ex-English cricketers were saying, well, it's out. Like, he's had a dozy moment where he's walked out of his crease without the umpire. Now,
I think it's only the England players.
And the whole Stokes saying, I wouldn't have done it, I would have questioned. Bullshit. Jesus, he would have.
You're going to do whatever you need to do to win.
Yeah, it's within the... And somebody said about the spirit of the game. The spirit, and in the writing of the spirit of the game is, one of the things in that is to never argue with the umpires.
Mm-hmm.
So Australia said, how is he? The umpires have said out. Now the English go, well, it wasn't out. Well, we're not arguing with the umpires, mate. If the umpire's giving it out, it's out.
It's just out. And I don't... I know that they lost the game. They're probably just salty, even though they probably think they're in the perfect position to win the Ashes because Bazball or whatever. But
maybe they should make pitches that actually do something. I must admit, I couldn't handle our bowling. There was a stage before the end of the first session and sort of the second session, I was going, okay, I don't know if the bounce is working to Stokes all the time. Could we try a few line and length ball people?
It was really frustrating that we just kept doing the same thing, hoping he mishit it. And he did. And to be fair, that's how he got out. Yep. But even the tactics around bringing the field up on the third or fourth ball, copying the fact he might hit a boundary, but trying to get Broad back on strike the next over. It happened once. We managed to do that once. It was the most infuriating thing. Once Stokes went out, we got a couple of quick wickets. That last partnership between Tong and Anderson, short. What got the wicket?
That's fine.
The full ball.
Well, exactly. And that was the other thing was
throw one in there every now and then. Just throw a full ball in there. See what happens.
So what was frustrating me was that they with 2 balls to go, they were still bowling short bounces, and I'm going, well, he can't hit a single from that. Like he's he's the way he's going, he's clubbing everything to wherever he wants of it. Just put one wide outside of off, make him have to play a shot.
And that's what we started to do. Was put it wide. Stokes couldn't hit it. Dried up the runs. And that's probably what got him out. But we didn't change the field. It was frustrating.
It took like 7 overs to work that one out. And I thought, oh, this is taking too long.
Can I ask you
I don't mind shorts to the tailenders, and tailenders have to expect that. That's part of cricket.
Yeah, but once you've bowled 5 short balls at them, you can probably chuck a full one in and expect they're going to be moving backwards.
And so many times with Stokes and with Anderson too, not Anderson, sorry, the other bowler, Broad. He was ready for a bouncer, and his feet were positioned like if you bowled
and that's
a short.
What I mean. So bowl a Yorker.
He would have just.
We took the last wicket in the end. I will say. Oh no, sorry. I want to ask you. How did Cummins get a black eye?
Yeah, the ball hit him.
Oh, it was
in the field. He mentioned that in the press conference. He goes, and he said, "I've got to learn to field." And I loved one of the English commentators said, "Wanker," said, "Oh, so how do you feel about the sort of doing what you do, and will this mean that you'll do a man cat or an underarm delivery?" And Cummins said back something like, well, with the way the pitches are, we nearly would.
I did like that.
Like it's day 5 and the pitch is dead shit.
Dead, yeah. I did like one of the English ex-cricketer, I can't remember who it was, asked him, or said to Cummins, Ben Stokes has said that he was really against the spirit of the game. He wouldn't have done it. Rah. Cummins' response was, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Fuck off. Move on. I don't care.
Well, we'll see what he does if he's in the same situation. And also, I point out that so in the first game, their coach told them that it was pretty much a win.
Yeah, and didn't Crawley say they were going to win Lords by 150 runs?
Probably, I didn't
200
hear that.
runs short, mate.
But then in the second test, they sent us in with our spinner broke down before the second innings.
Very badly, yep.
Like bad.
Broken.
For a guy who played 100 tests straight, like he's really gone out and done an injury.
He's
done made up for
an all-timer, yeah.
Yep. And then didn't have short a bowler for that last innings and part of the first innings, and still dragged it over the line.
Yeah, it's great. End of the day, we beat them, and they're all sucking. It's fantastic.
Agree. Sorry, we've probably done a little bit of a cricket show, haven't we?
That's all right. If you're still here and you like the cricket chat, we're all for it. Especially when it's the Ashes. If it was India or South Africa, I probably wouldn't give a shit.
I wouldn't be watching it at 3:00 in the morning on a Saturday night.
I did stay up until 1:15 last night and definitely regretted it this afternoon.
I couldn't do it last night. It would have killed me. I did it Saturday night and I was in a bit of pain Sunday.
Bit tired.
Yeah.
All right, that'll do us for this edition. As I touched on at the start, get in the comments and just click on that link and fill in the form. It's all anonymous, not that we really give a shit anyway, but it'll help us guide the podcast into the future. And if that's all from you, Nathan, go Dons.
That is all from me, Sam.
Go Dons.
Go Bombers.